All right, guys, 7 income producing properties hit the South Florida market today. Let's check them out. But before we do, let's make sure that we know what interest rates we're going to be using to analyze the properties. And the way that we do that is we're going to look at the FRED, or the Federal Reserve of St. Louis, I think it is, their 30-year fixed rate mortgage average in the United States. Okay, and you can see here that for a while, right, it was going down, 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 and then it spiked up. This is during this whole thing with Iran, and then it went down, and then this last week it went back up a bit, okay? So with that being said, that's one thing. Right now, if you're a buyer, don't get dissuaded by this. You could use the higher interest rates as a bargaining chip with the seller, because the seller is now gonna have less buyers, right? You're probably thinking, well, Andres, with a higher interest rate, I could afford less property. Well, that's good, because that means that if you come across a house that's not your maximum, right, which you shouldn't really be going for your maximum unless it really cash flows, right? You want to have some breathing space there. Then you want to make sure that you're going to be able to negotiate with the seller, right? So if let's say your pre-approvals for 500,000, right? Because that's how much you have, whatever, right? Try to spend 400, right? If it's 600, try to spend 500, and that way, when interest rates go up, you can still afford the $500,000 house if you're pre-approved at 600,000. And now all these other people that were maybe pre-approved for 500,000 at most, they disappear, right? And now that means less buyers for the seller. That means that you could drive a better negotiation and a better price for yourself. And now the next thing that you're going to use is the market knowledge to know, like, hey, there's 2,100 homes on average that hit them. Not average; these are real. 2,100 homes hit the market in the last week. In the same period of time, there was a price decrease for 2,138 homes, right? So it's basically for every home that hits the market, you're having another home have a price decrease, which means that the probability of any home that we see today, of any multifamily, residential multifamily that we see today, having a price decrease over the life of its listing is pretty damn high, right? And again, if somebody's like really motivated and they really want to sell this, you could point all this information out and just like show them, right? Because their realtor might not be showing them this information, but show them like, hey, look, this is real stuff, right? You could just screenshot this and show it to them, that these are real things. And that could motivate him even further, knowing that, hey, he's dealing with an educated buyer. He might treat me fair. He's probably going to treat me fair because he's just not throwing numbers at me. He's coming at this from a certain kind of approach, like a analysis-based approach. So it's not a disrespect when I get an offer that's $100,000 less, right? So with that being said, let's take a look at the 7 properties that hit the market today. We're going to come here, new multis. So yeah, there's 7. Let's sort these by price per square foot. Okay, exciting. All right, most of them are below the $400 range in price per square foot, and that's good because usually anything above 400 usually doesn't work, but sometimes there's listing errors, and so we're going to check them all out anyway. All right, that being said, the first property that we see here is a $1.5 million triplex in Palm Beach. Okay, they're currently paying, according to the agent, $1 million a year in taxes. That is almost guaranteed to be wrong. It's probably 10,000 and with change. So I'm gonna put 10,000, 23, 2 with 85 cents there, right? Square feet wise, 2,367 square feet. Okay, they don't tell us how much the rents are, and that's yeah. So all right, there's already an error here, so there might be more errors. Let's take a look at the quality of the property. And before we do that, guys, I'm just gonna grab my notepad because I should be taking notes. You guys should be taking notes. Because any property that sticks out after we do this, right, we want to reach out. And we also want to know the best, the way that the property is currently performing and where we think we could get it to perform. Especially if somebody's like renting out their house and they're already renting it out below market average rents, right? We know we could just come in here and renovate rents or renew rents at a higher rate or look for new tenants. That's really easy fixes, right? So with that being said, let's take a quick look, guys, the quality of this property. So it's right by the ocean. It's really pretty. Okay. Yeah, this looks really, really pretty. So it's really, really pretty, and it's got box ACs. Go figure. Okay. Yeah, somebody put some real work into this house. It's really, really pretty. Okay, cool. Let's take a look at the guts of this property and see what we could figure out. Rare investment opportunity, absolutely gorgeous, renovated triplex, prime Boynton Beach, walk bike to the beach, new roof in 2023, oversized slot, quite street. All right, so they say so it's 321s, and he says that they all rent at $42.50. Wow. So $42.50, $42.50, and $42.50. If that's the case, this property is close to being a 1% kind of a property. As a matter of fact, it's a 0.85% of a property. You know, if the rents are real, if you could actually rent these out for $42.50 a month, any bank would lend you on this any day of the week, because the rents would pay 153% of the mortgage, right? Banks usually like to see 125%. Rents pay 125% of the mortgage. At minimum, they want to see 110% of the mortgage being covered by the rents. Okay, so the only next thing to look here is going to be, well, first, what returns does that give you, right? If they actually do rent them out for this much money, what kind of returns do you get for this property, right? And that means that if they actually rent out for this much and the taxes are only $10,000, right? If they're not $1 million, if the rents are only $10,000, then that means that you could rent this out and get a return as good as 22%, okay? But before we do that, let me make sure that we know what the taxes are here, because obviously the real estate agent didn't put that in correctly. Okay, so taxes are actually higher than this. They're $17,618. So I don't know where he got that number from. So $17,618. Okay. And that obviously changes the returns, because you're going to be paying more per year to Uncle Sam, or not even Uncle Sam, Uncle Palm Beach County, right? So it's a 1.5 mil triplex in Palm Beach. And the rents right now, he says, are $12,750 total. That means that the returns here are 17.6%. That would make this an awesome property. That would make this property like a B plus, right? Bordering on A. Now, the thing is, do I think that those rents are real? Well, let's take a quick look at what you can get for rents in Broward County, okay? I don't have Palm Beach here, but I do have Broward, all right? And for a 2-1, the maximum you could get for rent are $3,000. And this is like waterfront property, like multifamily property in Broward County. Now you're talking all the way up in Palm Beach, by Boynton Beach. Do I think that you could actually get these prices, right? Yes, you are really close to the water there. That's really nice. But I don't think that for a 2-1, people are going to be paying you $42.50. I think that might be the case for a short-term rent, okay? And I don't know if they might maybe mention that here. Let's see. Especially it has box ACs, guys. Remember that. With box ACs, okay? I think that at best this guy does get like $3,000, okay? For that 2-1, for those 2-1s. And if that's the case, it just changes things a whole lot. Right? Because now the best return that this property could give you is $9,000 instead of $12,000, almost $13,000. Okay. I don't think that this guy's in some sort of distress for this property. And I don't know how much more he would be willing to take off the price. But I think that it's fair to say that you could probably negotiate, 5 to 10% off the price, 10% being 150 grand, 5% being 75. So if you can negotiate 100 grand off of this, let's see where it would sit. It's not unreasonable. I think if you gave this guy an offer for 1.4, he would take it. Right? It just barely starts to make some sort of sense, but not quite enough for a bank to lend you money on it. This is where I really think that the rents actually sit, right? And at that point, the rents here would sit at this will give you a return of 8.4% over the life of the property. And it just does, at that point, it just doesn't make sense. So this is a property that I would say, like, hey, don't discard it completely. If you want to, I would call the listing agent and say, hey, do you have long-term leases for this? How do you get this 4250? Do you get it from like AirDNA based off of like what you could get if you Airbnb this out? Because if that's the case, then you know that the real rents are not 4250, right? Real rents are 12-month long-term rents. You don't want to have to continuously have to worry about turnover costs and management costs, increased management costs, increased maintenance costs that come with having an Airbnb. Okay, although this would be a prime Airbnb location, right next to the beach. This property is almost made for Airbnb. If that's your game, if you want to be in more heavily managed properties, then so be it. Go for it. But what we do on this channel is we look for properties that, you know, if it's your first time owning a property, hey, you're only dealing with renewals once a year, right? You're dealing with property management on small things, not on continuous like people coming in, leaving you bad reviews. It just makes the game a whole lot more difficult. I would say Airbnb is like level 3 difficulty when you're going to start off doing investment properties. So with that being said, let's take a look at the next property. This property for me, I'm just going to discard it. All right. Next up is a $980,000 duplex in Miami-Dade. It's currently paying $8,870 a year in taxes. Square feet, 2,003 square feet. Okay, whoops. And they don't tell us how much they're paying in rent or collecting in rent, but they tell us in flood zone X, which is the best kind of flood zone you could be in. The property looks awesome, right? Nice little white picket fence. On the inside, it looks nice too. Lots of light. Not a fan of that bathroom, but you know, maybe they had some extra tiles left over, and so they decided to pimp out that laundry room. This looks like a garage that got turned into a bedroom. Okay, so this house might not be, is that taken from the shower out? I think so. Okay, that's not in the shower, right? But where's the door? Yeah, I'm a little confused here. Like, is the toilet in? What? Yo, that's weird. Uh, okay, here we go. Okay, I guess the door is this way. So the door is, yeah, I'm still massively confused. Anyway, all right. So it looks all right. It looks nice. Okay. Corner lot next to a big multifamily. All right, let's look at the guts of this deal so we could figure out. Investment opportunity to live and rent. Beautiful and bright house offers 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a half, 2.5 baths. Laundry room, plenty of parking space. That's the front of the house. Additional 2 units of 1 bedroom, 1 bath each. So it's a triplex, right? Okay, and they said they're all vacant. Okay. Property was fully redone, with city permits, plans, and inspections, Okay, cool. Awesome. Let's double check that. Okay, now here's the thing, right? So it says property use, single family, 1 unit. Land use, residential, zoning, duplex. So, and they have problems with the taxes, okay? So taxes, yes, there's an issue there. Okay, they bought this property not that long ago for $480K. Obviously, they put some work into it. And now they want almost $1 million for it. Now, this is what I wanted to see. We can come down here. We can see here there's just one unit, right? And there's a total of 5 bedrooms, and they said there's 1 bath. So this is interesting. I wonder what they actually have for plans for this house, okay? But you can see here that there are 5 bedrooms in total, okay? So if they actually turned this into a triplex, although it's zoned for single family homes, so just be careful on this, guys. You want to make sure, this guy says that everything was fully done with permits. So maybe it's just not updating correctly on the county records, but it looks a little sus already. So some red flags there. Miami-Dade. Let's see what he could get for rent. If everything looks really nice, a 3-2 in Miami-Dade could rent for $3,000. But given the quality of the product here, I would say that he could maybe get $3,400. Okay. Then 1-1s, if they look as nice as what we were able to see, maybe like 1,700, maybe let's say 1,750. Okay. Actually, I think 1,700 would be at max. Yeah. Yeah, 1,700. Okay. And if that's the case, if you could actually get those rents out, right? Then the returns right now at $6,800 a month would be, by the way, it would be a 0.69 on the 1% rule. So just shy of what I like to consider like, hey, we could start looking at this. But a bank would lend you money on this because the rents right now, if this is what you could collect in rents, it would be able to pay 118% of your mortgage. And remember, banks start lending around 110%. So with that being said, the returns here, if that is the case, could be as good as 10.6%. Okay? As good as 10.6% over the life of the property, right? If you can negotiate this price down to like, let's say, 900K, so dropping 80K, an 80K drop, especially because he's a little bit, he's behind on the taxes already. Like, hey, just negotiate hard here, and you can still get that $6,800. This property could improve to 0.76 on the 1% rule, and it could definitely be 126% of your debt service coverage ratio. So it would be way easier to get a loan from the bank. And in that case, this property, if you could get that price drop and you could get those rents, this property could do as good as 12.3% average return on investment over the life of the property. All right. And so for that reason, I would say, hey, this property is definitely worth checking out, right? It could be a C kind of property, and maybe it could do a little bit better. So with that being said, we'll go ahead to the next one. Okay, next up, 595. And this is a duplex in Miami-Dade, and they are paying in taxes $6,087 per year. All right, square feet, it's on the small side, 1,500 square feet. It's not too big. Flood zone AE, not the best kind of flood zone, but you're going to pay a little bit of a premium on that. Let's look at the quality of the property. We get 2 pictures, and the 2 pictures look all right. Although again, there's box ACs here. Who wants to live with box ACs, man? That's just a big turn off. So let's take a look at this property a little bit more, because the price is not too bad, right? $595. Back on the market, great investment opportunity, or perfect for owner-occupant, well-maintained duplex, features 2 spacious units, each offering a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. Okay, so it's a duplex. Yeah, it's just a 2-1. Okay. It's just 2 2-1s. Okay, fine. So in Miami-Dade, that's all the information that we got, guys. In Miami-Dade, a 2-1 could rent out for as much as $2,300, or no, on median, which I would say that this is a median kind of looking property, $2,300. Okay. Oops. And if that's the case, guys, then this property could generate up to $4,600 a month. All right, it's looking pretty good on the 1% rule at 77% of the 1% rule. All right, and debt service coverage ratio at this point, the rents would pay enough of the mortgage where the banks would be happy with it and lend you money. So the only thing here is make sure that you check those rents and that you could, in fact, get $2,300 for each one of these 2-1s. Okay. I'm going to put here 4,600. This is in Miami-Dade. All right. And that means that the returns on this property, just as is, could be as good as 12.6%. Right? Now, if we can get these same rents and negotiate a little bit off the price, let's say we get this guy down to 550. So take off 45K. All of a sudden, the returns are going to get a little bit even more juicy, right? We're going to get up to 14.9%, which is for me, like, it's almost this is like a B plus territory, right? So, yeah, not bad. Yeah, so the lesson with this one is definitely check out the rents in the area. Remember, real estate is hyper local. You want to make sure that you are checking this out. And he is also delinquent on taxes. So he has not paid his taxes yet. So you might be able to negotiate even more money off, right? Instead of 45 and at 550, maybe you go down to 525, right? Offer him cash. And that could take your, if you take off five, right? Where were we? 595. If you take off 70K, now your return on investment could be as good as 17%, making this a solid deal. All right. All right, let's get rid of this property. Keep on looking. So far, so good, guys. So far, so good. Next up is a triplex in Palm Beach. We go back to Palm Beach. This time it's a reasonable price, $674,000, $675,000 basically. They're currently paying in taxes $12,606. Okay, they're telling us that they're collecting in rent $4,900 per month. Okay, we're gonna check that information out in just 1 second, but they do tell us that the property is 1,742 square feet. Okay. And flood zone X, which is, again, the best kind of flood zone you could be in. Let's take a look at the quality of the property. Well, I mean, if that's the property, that looks gorgeous. Okay, it does look a little dated, but, you know, dated but not ugly. Like, you know, it's got the box ACs, but it's got the pitched roof, so you could put AC in there. You know. All right, let's take a look at the guts of this deal. This is a pretty property. All right, income producing property in the heart of Lake Worth Beach, just a short walk from downtown Lake Avenue, yada, yada, yada. Property generates over $6,000 a month with room to increase rents. Produces more income than most triplexes in the area. Updated units. Yeah, because it's pretty. All right. And so they say that the property is currently a 4 income producing units generating $6,400 a month. So is it a triplex or a fourplex? Make up your mind. All right, let's take a look at the folio number here. So land use is commercial. That's interesting. Okay. It's a triplex. 2 stories. 3 bedroom, 3 bath total. So yeah, it's 3 1-1s. All right, and they're saying that they're leased. Okay, the leased ones are getting $1,700 a piece. And they're saying that the other one that's actually rented month to month is only getting $1,500. Okay, for $4,900 total. All right, so let's write this down. This guy wants $675 for this triplex in Palm Beach. Right now the current income is $4,900 a month. That means that the best return on investment here is going to be an 8.4% using a 25% down payment. Now, if we could increase, right, just a couple things. Could we increase the rents here to $1,700, right? Because the other one's are already there. So now we jump up to $5,100. By the way, 2 1s in Broward County go for as much as $1,960, right? So what if you could get maybe $1,800 a piece here? I don't think that the quality of the property is so bad that you couldn't get at least median rents compared to Broward County, right? I think that it's good enough where you could be able to get $1,800, okay? But again, double check the rents, but I think that this could be possible for this property. All right, and so if you could actually increase rents up to $5,400, The return's already 10%, 10.5%, which isn't bad. Now the question is, how much could he take off the price here? All right, let's see if he's in any sort of distress. I think we already clicked there, but it doesn't look like it. Okay, it looks like at least he paid his taxes. I think you could probably reduce this price 75K, okay, and bring this guy down to, yeah, probably like 600K. Let's see if it makes sense at 600K, because right now it's just matching the S&P. And so at 600K, like you're getting damn close to the 1% rule, right? You're 90% of the 1% rule, right? A bank would lend on you easy because you're at 128% of the mortgage, okay, the rents. And the return here at best is going to be 13%. Okay. Not the best, but not the worst either. So that's that with this property, guys. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, so this time it's a $695,000 fourplex. All right, this is sounding interesting. $695 a fourplex, and in Miami right now in taxes they're only paying $7,953 a year in taxes. Square feet, 2,000 square feet. Okay, they don't tell us how much you're collecting in rent, but it's in flood zone X, which again is good. Kind of flat roof, which I'm not a fan of. The inside obviously needs some work. Yeah. And it almost looks like a single family home. So let's double check this. Fully remodeled quadplex offering 4 one-bedroom, 1-bath residences is in a highly central Miami location near Flagler Street, Brickell in downtown. 3 units are occupied, paying $1,700 a month and $1,750 per month. Unit 1 is vacant and easy to see. All right, let's make sure that this is a legit multifamily. Okay, so it is multifamily, but it's actually a duplex. So it's a duplex with 2 bedroom, 2 baths. So somehow they turned that into, let me see. Now they did add something. So I don't know if this is an additional dwelling unit, but as long as it's on the up and up, right? He's saying that there's 4 units here. All right. If there are 4 units here, guys, and we could actually get that kind of cash flow, $1,700 a month, right? In Miami-Dade, the median for a 1-1 is $1,600. I would say that that's probably more realistic. If it really does have 4 units, I would think, just based on the quality of what we saw, it rents for $1,600 or less, right? They might rent it for more, but again, it's the quality of the tenant that you're going to get. If you stretch yourself out to get somebody that's going to be able to pay you $200, $100, $150 more, or 10, 20% more of the rent per month than the average person will, the question is, why is that person willing to pay that extra price? Sometimes they won't have good credit scores. Sometimes they'll have like stuff in their backgrounds like evictions, which you definitely don't want. But in that case, they're willing to pay you more money, but you run the risk that they do the same thing to you. So these rents are based off of just all of Miami-Dade, and that usually falls with like people doing their due diligence when getting tenants, especially because these are like realtor transactions. Like they use a realtor, and usually when you use a realtor, agents want to see like good, again, background check, credit scores, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, with that being said, this property at most could collect $6,400 if that is the case, okay? And that would make this property not too bad. But again, this is a property that you definitely want to check out. At $695, if the property, it's a fourplex, make sure that it's a real fourplex in Miami-Dade. And if it could collect for real, $6,400, you do your due diligence for the rents, right? The returns on investment this property could provide over the life of it is up to 21%, making this property an A. Now, if you fix that up a little bit, right? Or if you could reduce the price, I think that's the maximum rents you're gonna get. So that's max rents. I don't think that you're gonna be able to get $1,700 here, all right? With good tenants. But if you can decrease the price here, right? By, I think it would be reasonable to say bring this guy down to 650. So 45K drop. And he wasn't in any kind of like back taxes owed or anything like that, was he? No. So if you get a 45K drop and bring this down to 650, this property is going to do a lot better, obviously. Yeah, and then the returns here jump to 27.2%, which makes this property great. So yeah, I would say that all around, this property is definitely worth doing some further, homework, finding out the age of that roof. Let's see, does he put it here? No. Finding out the age of the roof, finding out like if it's a legit fourplex, right? Or if it's kind of like just built that way. They kind of like chopped a duplex and made it a four. Okay. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go back here. We're going to get rid of this one and we're going to keep looking. But so far, so good, guys. We found some pretty good properties today. Okay. Next up is a 2 million. So it's cheap. These are the cheaper ones by price per square foot, but they're the overall most expensive ones. This is a fourplex in Miami-Dade. They're currently paying $17,673 a year in taxes, but it's a big property, almost 7,000 square feet, 6,756 square feet. Okay. It's a big property. All right. Now, what are they collecting in rent? They're saying that they're collecting in rent $15,000 a month. 15,471. Okay. And we're going to put zeros here, 0, 0. All right. Flood zone AE, so you're going to pay a bit of a premium there. Let's look at the quality of this property. All right, so it's a new construction property. It's got these ugly ass walls. Sorry, it's got these ugly walls here. Man, just terrible. Okay, so maybe they were Airbnb-ing this out because it even has furniture. That's crazy. Okay, interesting. Let's look at the guts of this deal. Attention to investors, Okay, so they say that it's 4 newly constructed property generates $15,000 a month and is centrally located rapidly, Okay, they say that there's 4 threes, okay? Each one renting, they say that they're leased. Okay, all right. Position in a large lot. This turnkey asset offers low maintenance ownership with strong, stable cash flow. Tenants cover all utilities with separate water and electric meters, maximizing efficiency and minimizing expenses for the owner. Whether you're looking to expand your portfolio or secure a high performing asset in a high growth area, the property checks all the boxes. Schedule your listing. Okay, so they say that unit 1 is a 4-3 that's collecting $4,034 a month. They say that the other 4-3 is collecting $38.78. The other 4-3 is collecting $38.01, and the other 4-3 is collecting $37.58. And that comes up to that amount of money per month, right? Now, I don't have information for 4-3s, which does add a substantial amount more of utility, but a 3-2 in Miami rents out for a median of $3,000. I don't think it's far-fetched that for another whole bedroom and bath, you're getting another grand, okay? It's quite possible. So I would say definitely check this property out. You might, let me see if there's any information here in the folio number. Yeah, 4 units, 2 stories, 16 baths, 16 bedrooms, 12 baths. So yeah, it's legit. This is legit, okay? Now the thing here is that even though it produces all this income, right, the property as a whole is just not that great of an investment, okay? Debt service coverage ratio, the rent, if you could get these rents, if these are legit rents, it only covers about 17% more of what your actual mortgage is, right?
on the 1% rule, it's a 0.7%. So it's not even close. It's like 70% of the 1% rule. And I mean, at this point, it starts making a little bit more sense. But again, it's not going to be very big. Look at the returns, 10.4%. Why would you have 4 tenants, right? A huge property to deal with. And you're getting returns that you could possibly match on the S&P 500. Just not worth it. Now, I think that these are probably the best rents that you could get for this property, right? It's a $2.19 million fourplex. Again, Miami-Dade. Current rents, $15,471. The returns as they are, 10.4% at best. Now, do I think that you could drop the price here? Definitely. I think you probably get this guy down to $2 million. Right? And if you could drop it $190K, then this property makes a little bit more sense and you can get it as good as 12.2%. I think that these are probably the best rents that you could get, right? You might want to double check me, but look, they're all right around $3,800, and he was able to score this one at $4,000. Okay, but the reality is that maybe that this one comes down again to the $3,900, $3,800 range. All right, but let's say that it doesn't. The best returns here are going to be 12%, 12.2%, if you're able to negotiate that price down $190K. All right, and the rents here, I think that the max is $15,471. All right, so that's that. I would go ahead, discard this property, and let's look at our last property for the day. It's a $1.375 million fourplex in Broward County. Current taxes are $22,023 a year in taxes. Interest rate of 6.3%, right? That's where we are at. Square feet, it's a big one too, 4,855 square feet. Okay. Now they're saying that they're only collecting $2,300 a month in rent, right? If that's the case, that's pretty freaking terrible. Their returns would be abysmal. Let's take a look at the property and then we'll take a look. Okay, so I think that we've seen this property before maybe, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like there's actually 5 units here. There's an upstairs section 2. So this looks more like a commercial multifamily. And the actual property itself doesn't look all too terrible. Okay. All right, is it in Fort Lauderdale? Yeah, it's in Broward. All right. Let's take a look at the property itself. They say there's, well, they don't even tell us. They don't even tell us. Let's take a look at the folio number. Maybe we get some information. 4 units, 2 stories. Each unit is a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Okay, so this is a legit fourplex. Interesting. Okay, so legit fourplex. All right, 1.375 mil in Broward County. Fourplex in Broward. Now they're saying that they're getting $2,300 for each one of these 3 twos. I don't think that that's far-fetched. If you could get $2,300 for a 3-2, that's almost what I charge for a 2-bedroom. So I don't think that that's like completely wrong. But if that's the case, and this property is only collecting $9,200 a month, and at that purchase price, right, and with the taxes the way that they are, this property is only performing a 7.1% return over the life of the investment, 30 years, right? Now, do I think that this has room to go up in terms of the 3-2s? Absolutely. All right. I think that a 3-2 on average should rent for around $2,700. There's no reason that you can't update this a little bit and get at least $2,500 for each one of these. Okay. There should be a way in Broward for this property to get up to the 10 grand. Okay. Now, is he in some sort of distress? I think we looked here. It doesn't look like it. Okay. Now, what do I think that you can negotiate this price down to? Probably 175K. Just, you know. No, I think 175 would be too much. Yeah. You could probably negotiate like maybe like 125,000, right? So bring this guy down to like 1.25. Whoops. So you bring this guy down to 125,000 less, so 1250. There we go. All right, so if you bring this guy down 125K, he's not in distress, right? Then the best, and you could increase the rents to $10,000 a piece, the property starts looking a little bit better, but it's not going to be great. And I think it's, again, because of those high taxes, all right? Yeah, at that point, this property is going to be able to produce $10,000 a month, and the best return here over the long term is going to be 9.7%. And again, that's just below the S&P. So it doesn't really make sense for this property. Even if you go through all the work, you'd reduce the price 125K, and you do the work and you get the rents increased to $200 a piece, this property still would perform less than the S&P 500. And so for that reason, this property would be enough. So that being said, guys, that's it for today. Some pretty good properties out there, right? There's some properties here that by themselves are supposedly making 21% returns, which is double the S&P. It's like a Warren Buffett territory. So with that being said, guys, have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.